I just want to first ask a question, really. How many of you enjoy cooking? Oh, there's so many of you. That's so nice. That's so good. Okay. I'll tell you a bit about myself first. I've been cooking for a very long time. Bear with. This was my first ever kitchen. It was in my family for about 20 years before Mum sold it on eBay. I was really sad to see it go. Nowadays, back then it used to be my delicacies included next door neighbours' tabloid newspapers and mixed with my mum's face creams, which she wasn't too happy about, but she pretended to like it, bless her. Nowadays, to be honest, now that I've moved away from home, because I've moved out of Newport about 5 years ago now, and now that I moved away, I find myself coming back to food from my culture. So my heritage is Bangladeshi, so I end up cooking lots of southern Indian dishes, and I go to other parts of Asia as well, so what I call our cousin lands, so Japan, Korea, China, my Korean fan there. And I've grown up now since then, and I started last year my own independent cookery business. So I do cookery lessons in the home, private dinner parties, that kind of thing. And it took a lot of encouragement from my loved ones to push me to do it. A lot of it is self-belief, I think. You have to believe in yourself that you can do it. And not everyone's going to like your food, and that's fine. That's fine. A lot of the time they smile, so that's always good. That's always helps. And today I really just want to talk to you about how food and cooking has affected my life, really shaped me into the person I am. And yeah, we'll go from there. So for me, food is more than just fuel. It's how I connect with myself. I work in the finance industry in the day. So much like Nathan, I did a film degree and then I went into banking. It kind of seems to be a similar route for a lot of people. Yeah, you might go to food next. But yeah, it's how I, after a long day, if I'm stressed, if I'm happy, if I'm sad, I go into the kitchen and I cook. And it can be anything. It can be just putting something in the oven. But it's just how I de-stress. And I think it's such a lovely way to be able to just take a breather and just connect with yourself for a moment. Every time I go to different countries, I tend to do cooking lessons there. I just think it's such a good way to get to know a country is to eat its food. And if you can do cooking lessons there, you learn about the history of where the fruit and veg is from, history from the chefs. There's so much to learn. And as an aspiring chef, I'm still learning. There's no way I'm perfect at all. And that particular lesson there, the people I met were from Canada, from the US. There were some from Italy itself, and they were just learning, and Spain, and they were just learning how to cook their own foods. And I think that was so lovely. And all the food that we cooked was sourced from La Boqueria. I'm so sorry if I butchered that, by the way. La Boqueria market. And it was just beautiful. And that in itself was a bit magical for me. That was my Disney moment. When I was younger, I used to watch little cooking shows. They used to be Ready, Steady, Cook with Ainsley Harriott. I used to copy the frying pan thing and just made a mess all over the kitchen. Again, my poor mum just had to clean it. She put up with it a lot. I'll tell you more about her. And now it's more watching food blogs on YouTube and watching or listening to podcasts as I sleep. I know that sounds really sad, listening to people talk about food when I sleep, but it helps. And there's a lot of people that inspire me. I'm just going to name drop in a minute. Tom Kerridge. Hi, Tom, if you're watching. I love the way Tom, he uses seasonal ingredients to produce amazing British food, and he's so passionate about it. And I was totally fangirling. I met him this year at the BBC Good Food Show, and I was just there like, oh my God, I'm so happy to meet you. And he was just there like, you all right? Yeah? He was so lovely. And Anthony Bourdain, who's one of my food heroes, I went to Naples just to try his pizza that he had on his, what documentary was it? It was a good few years ago now, and I watched it when I was younger, and I just thought, one day I will have that pizza in Naples, and I did it this year, so I was really happy about that. And do you know Nigel Slater as well? So yeah, he's so sensual when he talks about food. There was one where he described a mushroom and he made it sound like a bit of gold, and I just thought, wow. And all that passion just rubbed off on me. And when I look at ingredients now, I just think, I'm there in the market smelling veg, and my friends are like, what are you doing? So it's how I know it's good, it's fine. So people, I get weird looks, but it's fine. So I cook for many reasons. I mean, food is necessary for our body and also for our mind. And for me, it teaches me about other cultures. It allows creativity. And, you know, usually when we think of creativity, we think of artists and musicians usually. So you don't usually think of cooking, I suppose. But if you think as kids, we fizz with ideas and imagination. And as we get older, we do tend to lose some of that. But I think cooking and food is a way you can get back into it again. Let me just bore you, or let me just actually, let me entertain you with a fact from the Harvard Health blog. So there's something I learned recently. So you have your two parts of the brain. So your left side of the brain is more for facts, logical thinking, works with a lot of along the linear sort of thinking lines. Then your right side of the brain is more for imagination, holistic thinking, and arts. And for me, that's what food is. It's a combination of art and science, where you can combine the both and work with both parts of your brain. And that's so important to us as humans. Would you agree? Yes. And food is art for anyone who can cook. I mean, cooking should be for everybody. It's not always possible, of course. You can underestimate the impact of a good culinary education. Social inequalities mean that there was still hunger and poor nutrition, even in the richest parts of the world. But that doesn't mean we can't change it. I have some ideas about that, I'll show you. This is my mum. I know she looks like my daughter instead of the other way around. I was given the right tools to have a passion for food. I come from a mix of cultures. I'm Bangladeshi, I'm Welsh. I was born and raised in Newport, even though I don't live here anymore. But it still feels like coming home. That's what Newport is for me. And food is at the center of every family gathering. You couldn't go to anybody's house without eating. Even if it was just apples, my nan would just be like, here, have some fruit. And I'd be like, no, I've eaten, just have some fruit. And just forcing apples down my throat. And I just remember during the summer as well, there were times when there'd just be, I go into the garden, there'd just be rows and rows of runner beans. And we end up giving loads of runner beans to neighbours because there were just so many of them. And then my grandparents would give us a challenge for all the grandkids, who could dig up the biggest potato, and whoever could dig up the potato got to eat it. That was a prize. And that was fine. I usually end up having it, so it was good. And I used to think mum was a magician. I mean, as a teenager, I used to go into cupboards and I'd be like, oh, there's nothing to eat. And then I used to go to the living room in a huff and folded arms. And mum would be like, what's wrong? I said, there's no food. I said, of course there's food. So watch, half an hour later, she'd come back with 2 plates, like a dessert and a main course. Oh my God, it blew my mind. But yeah, that's her. And she's been a huge inspiration for me, definitely. Has anyone seen this Facebook page? A lot of you are part of it, I know. So basically, everyone is part of a food community, whether you know it or not. This particular page is literally, you post pictures and people comment on it. That is it. That's literally the page. So you have some very artistic ones, which I think is a really good self-portrait, to be honest. That's just really... My point is, with this Facebook page, this has just under 2.5 million members commenting and posting pictures. How amazing is that? Even if it is rubbish food, people are still communicating about food, and I think that's magical for me. Has everyone seen Nadia's Asian Odyssey? Yeah, so winner of the Bake Off. She did a program this year. She basically took a DNA test, and she found out she had heritage from Cambodia, Thailand, and Nepal. And the whole program, so she basically went around the different countries and she ate their food, met them, went in their houses, met their families. And the whole thing reaffirmed to me that we are all connected in some way. There is not one thing that divides us really, we're all the same. And that program, I just thought how beautiful it was that, because they're not countries that are exactly together, but someone somewhere 50 years ago took a boat from one place to another, met a woman, got married and carried on. And I think that's pretty brilliant. And for me, it breaks down cultural barriers. If we can do that with other people, it breaks down cultural barriers. We can create a more inclusive society, and it builds empathy and community. There's so many ways and you can connect with yourself, with family, and with food. That's my little sister. She's the littlest one. And every time, so now that I don't live at home anymore, every time I come home, she's like, can we bake? Sure. But I feel like it's my privilege and my responsibility to be able to pass down what I've learned to my sisters and to people I meet. As long as you eat, you have a passion for food, to be honest, as long as you like eating, and who doesn't like eating? There's one thing I tried this year. Has anyone done potluck dinners? No? Okay, so potluck dinners, something I encourage you all to do. With your neighbours, you can be selective with your neighbours, but try and invite somebody that you don't know. And basically the idea is that everyone cooks a dish and brings it to the table to one house, so one person hosts. And the idea, you can do a theme, you can do something like, it could be a dish you grew up with, but it sparks a conversation. It sparks a conversation that can bring you closer to other people, bring you closer to your neighbour. And again, it doesn't matter who your neighbour is. They can end up being your best friend in, a few dinners afterwards. But do things like that bring you together. And especially here in Newport, we've got such a diversity of people. We have people here from routes all over the world. And that's something that we need to take advantage of. When I was younger, Mum used to give me the onions to chop. So she'd give me literally a sack of onions and she'd be doing all the cooking bits. But how I learned to cook was through preparation first. So with preparation, you can be involved with cooking no matter how good you are at it with preparation. When you're sat there chopping onions and talking to whoever's doing the cooking at the time, that's when it leads to conversation about techniques, culture, methods and traditions. But these roots that we have from all over the world, how exciting is that? And we need to take advantage of the people that we have around us. So, in this world where we're constantly hearing bad things online and in the news, use tools like cooking to connect and learn about each other. Again, you'd be surprised at who picks you up when you're down. There's one thing that you can try. Have you guys hosted a street party before? Yeah? Good. How did they go? Mad. Okay. Street parties don't have to be reserved just for the Queen's birthday or a royal baby or your royal wedding. Tell your council that you want to need them. Tell them that you want to use it to maintain a community. Within your street parties, if you can use them to build an environment of love and understanding and appreciation of each other. We had a street party down where I live now, and where I am at the moment, it's not a hugely diverse place, and a lot of people that I met there have not met an Asian person before. So I thought it was a good introduction let's see what we can do with food. So we organised a street party, and actually some of the neighbours and things that we met have got heritage from Asia, from Canada, from New Zealand. And again, you'd be surprised at where you're from. You should all do a DNA test, see what that comes out with. Okay. So I was travelling around Italy this year, probably July time, and I went for the food. That's what I went for. I went for the food, and I loved seeing the veg stalls and the people cooking and people talking about stuff they grew. And again, it was so magical to watch people eating and smelling and being so passionate about what they're doing. And I spoke to one of the stall holders and they said, oh, actually, there's all the food waste that we have goes to the local farms, so none of that goes to waste. Sometimes I think with food, it's one of the things we need to survive, few things we need to survive, yet we can be quite careless with it. I don't think we do it intentionally. But per household, we waste £470 per year worth of food. That's a lot of money. That can go towards anything. It can be loads of coffees, it can be a holiday, it can go towards your savings. There's so many ways in which we can improve carbon footprint, improve our health. Go to the yellow sticker section in your supermarket. There's fruit and veg there that is not bad, it just has that sell-by date, but you can put it in the freezer. So do things like that, and that will save your money, save your health, and help the economy as well. Certain foods trigger memories. There was one time I was in Barry Island, and as all Welsh families do, we go to Barry Island in the summer for the beach. And when I say my family, I mean my mum, my sisters, my grandparents, my 4 uncles, my 4 aunties, my 13 cousins, my neighbours, all probably in 4 or 5 cars, just bringing it down the motorway. And I remember my nan picking up this gigantic Union Jack picnic blanket, and I was so mortified and embarrassed. And then she also whipped out a giant margarine pot full of tuna crunch sandwiches. And again, I just took some sandwiches and ran off because I just thought, I'm so embarrassed to be seen with them. And now I'm just like, come here, hug me. But though every time I have a tuna sandwich, I think of Barry Island, and I think of feeding the seagulls my celery, because I hated celery at the time. But food is connected to the heart, and it makes you emotional. And how amazing is it that it can bring you those memories? I hope that I've given you something to think about. If you can use food as a tool to improve social lives, environment, agriculture, health and economy, regardless of culture, food is about bringing joy and happiness. There's so much history here, and there's so much to talk about. Especially now, more than ever, we need communication, empathy and understanding. It doesn't matter if you can't cook. Just let your brain fizz away and just think about what it can do with that bit of crusty bread left on the side, and start there. Thank you.